So that's what's cool about neuroscience.
Yeah.
You get this fucking hardware that you don't know how it works, and you reverse engineer everything about it.
Which is the same kind of parallel I want to make about neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Neuroscience, we're trying to reverse engineer. We're like, we don't know. But artificial intelligence, we're trying to build it from the bottom up. Like all these things, they kind of come from two sides. It's a duality.
But if you look at it from perspective of like consciousness from Buddhism, it's integrated. I am you, you are me. The whole universe is me. I'm just part of the universe.
It all connects.
It's like
the consciousness and the ways to change your identity and change who you are and actually make a change in your life, which is what we're all trying to do, is it's connected. And I want to find that connection because nobody's nailed it. Not a single person has nailed it. Yo, what's up, man? You're here.
Finally,
You're
man.
here in Mexico, bro. I didn't like when did we plan this? A week ago?
Like beginning of September, I think.
Yeah, it was like a couple weeks ago. I think you bought your tickets, right?
Pretty spontaneous, yeah. That and shooting with you in person, because...
Dude, it's been over almost a year since we saw each other in person, right, bro?
Yeah.
So it's good to be finally connected again.
Yeah, it's funny because like we both went different routes, and you started going a little bit heavier on, ads, design, all these things. I went a little bit heavier on like marketing, ads, and sales. And now like what's kind of bringing us together is our love for consciousness and our love for like learning about this shit, right?
Yeah, like the actual thing we want to do, and that's actually what we're going to be talking about today, guys, is consciousness. It's unsolved, and there's a lot of ancient knowledge, there's lots of new knowledge, but we want to really figure out and just play our part and like really push that envelope forward and see what we can help progress in that space, right? Like help raise people's consciousness. There's so much pain out there, so much suffering, so much indecisiveness, so much laziness. Right. There's so many bad things, but everything does boil that back down to consciousness, right?
I remember one of the things that like me and you were talking about that made me connect with you a lot is like, I mean, we've been friends for a few years now. Just recently we were speaking about like why consciousness, like why do we always go back to this thing? Like we're doing marketing, we're doing sales, we're doing content, we're getting success there and stuff, but somehow our minds and attentions always go back to how do we play a bigger role into helping people like recognize their own power or their consciousness or their limitations, right? And I was like, dude, I just see so many people, like even on my family, like that they have so many things or limiting beliefs or maybe just patterns that they're following that are limiting them. Yeah. And I'm like, everybody's fucked.
Yeah, dude, like, same thing. It's not even 99% of conversations I have, but literally 100% of conversations I have, they always come back to the consciousness question. It's the ultimate question. It's like, if you can solve consciousness, and if it even is possible, religion's tried, science has tried, everybody's tried in their own way. But if we can get together and actually get closer to solving it, then we can do anything, like as a species. Like it's crazy. Like instead of becoming Elon Musk, you know how to create a bunch of Elon Musks. Instead of creating a bunch of Mother Teresas, you know how to create a bunch of Mother Teresas. It's the ultimate question. It's the ultimate purpose that I find myself in, and I think I'm just glad we're on the same page, bro. We're on the same mission in our own ways.
Even if you want to take it like even like more simpler. Even just like a little bit of like it changes the day-to-day of people. So for example, the mentality of people, bro, like people sometimes they treat other people like shit, or they have like just scarcity mindset where if you're winning, like they just don't want you to win.
Right? Yeah, they're negative, they're in chasing and scarcity themselves. They want to drag you down. But what's even sadder is they drag themselves down and they're in it, and it's almost to the point where I feel compassion for people, even if they seem like a dick or like a little bit like rude or
100%.
Like I actually feel bad, like not from a superiority place, but from just like a human to human place. It's like, wow, I know how it feels to be in that energy. And even if you've been swimming in that and soaking that in for decades, it doesn't feel good, man. Like it feels good to serve. Like we're designed to serve. We're designed to help each other. Because if we weren't, by definition, the race would have ended itself, right? So like by definition, we have to help each other and we're more good than bad. Otherwise you would have self-destructed.
It's true. And like, dude, spending this time in Mexico, I mean, you've been here for like 10 months in Guadalajara, dude, like you're from the fucking US, you're from Hawaii. So like this new culture is, I bet, like kind of different for you.
Can't speak Spanish yet, but
me being in Mexico, like everybody, like the culture here is just like dog eat dog a little bit more than the US. Yeah. So like, I don't feel good stepping over people and shit because I have to like open up way for myself. Like I'll do it either way. Fuck it. Like it's what I need to do when I'm here. But what you just said, like there's consciousness in me that I'm like, fuck, like that person, like I feel bad for them because I have to be a dick to them or whatever, you know?
Yeah, it's that. And you know what's the most interesting thing is we understand like space and shit. Like we can predict total solar eclipses like hundreds of thousands of years into the future. We have this figured out. We have computers figured out. We have so many different things figured out.
Weather in like 50 years, 100 years.
And what's weird is consciousness is the most private, most closest thing to us, but it's also simultaneously the most least understood.
Right.
At the same time. It's like,
how could you do projections in consciousness, right?
Right. What do you mean projections in consciousness?
Like, for example, like
explain for anybody
like,
who doesn't understand.
Yeah, like you can know what, like how the weather is going to be in 100 years, 50 years, like
that kind of projection.
But you cannot project like where the human race will be in like 50 years, 100 years.
Yeah. I mean, it is, or predicting the weather, right? Predicting like planets moving is easier than predicting the weather. It's a strange phenomenon.
Really?
But if you want to go even deeper down, like consciousness, it's like there's so many factors. It's like environment and the state of your body and the thought patterns and everything together. Like I don't even know if it's possible to quantify. That's kind of what I want to do, because I actually have an AI background. For anybody who doesn't know, I studied artificial intelligence at Georgia Tech for my master's, and and then I went to coding, and then I went to a lot of NLP and hypnosis and those kinds of things. And Frankie, I'll let you speak a little bit about yourself. You come more from the ancient philosophy kind of side, so I'll let you talk a little about that in a second. But we're just kind of bringing those together and really trying to have a conversation about consciousness and exactly where we are. We want to be very clear with what we know and even clearer with what we don't know, but then take that together and see how far we can take it for the rest of our lifetimes, really. Because we both kind of find our life purpose, right? We want to talk about this and really, and we don't just be another person in this, people in the space where we're just like, oh, we don't want to rehash things that have already been done.
Everybody's repeating everything.
Exactly. We want to innovate, like the way Joe Dispenza is. Like I'm going to his event here in a couple months in Cancun, flying out there, the 7-day in-person event with him. I just want to practice these things and really push the envelope and do our part, right? I don't think, we're not delusional enough to think that we're going to solve it in our lifetime. It's probably something that we have to do as a species over the next few thousand years. But as long as we can start it, I think it's the best life I can think of living.
That's our endeavor. Like we've been speaking about this a bunch. Also, like, I don't know, like we kind of want to free flow this one a little bit more than other ones. Other ones I feel like are going to be a little bit more structured. I mean,
it's just the first one.
Right.
Just the first.
And that's our intention, right? Like Aaron mentioned, he's coming more from like an AI background. You studied coding, programming in college and everything too. You got a BA on that. I'm a freaking college dropout, dude. I freaking went to the reason why I'm talking about this and why I feel like I'm so gravitated towards it. I had my first enlightenment experience when I was 16, like 16.
You told me about this.
And it was a trip, dude. Like I was learning from Muji. I would always say Muji is my like spiritual teacher. I fucking like learned so much from him. I don't even know why I was paying attention to him, since it's so like esoteric and stuff. But deep down, I was like, this guy like talks from a very like truthful place. He must have something to teach me. One day, like literally in the backseat of a car with my friend, I literally just get this fucking, I don't even know how to explain, like a boom, like a realization is how I explain it. It's not a thought, it's not a feeling, it's a fucking realization. It's like a understanding. People in the community call it inner standing because it's so deep. And it just made me realize like how I'm separate from my mind. I'm not gonna go so deep into it, but it was pretty much an enlightening experience. Some people call it religious experiences. And so that led me to pretty much look into how can I explore the world? How can I make money or find a job where I can add more to this consciousness train and help people and make money. So I was like, I'm going to learn coding, bro. I'm going to learn coding and I'm going to make an app where people can meditate or do shit like that. That was that was my initial like going into college and coding. And that's funny enough. That's how I ended up meeting you, because I ended up dropping out. From computer science in my university. And we both started working at a Clever Programmer with Kazi.
Yeah.
And that's where we fucking our journey began.
Yeah, it was crazy. And we'll link all those channels. Muji, he's a guy on YouTube, also off of YouTube, but we'll link his YouTube channel below, as well as Clever Programmer, which is how we met. It's another channel that we actually both scaled to a million subs plus. Made a decent amount of money as well, and impacted a lot of lives. And that was a great chapter of our lives, but we really... and even since then, we've gone on and done other things. Like I've worked for other people, he's worked for other people. Omar, the Passionate Few. I've worked for a guy named Zach Dixon in coaching space, and that's where I learned a lot of my NLP and hypnosis stuff, right? But it's all brought us back to this, right? We've worked for other people. We've done other people's things. We've helped a lot of clients scale to millions of views, millions of dollars.
And we'll still do it.
We will, but we want to put most of our life energy into this. And really today, we really want to talk about, just have a free flow conversation about consciousness, about AI, about philosophy, about NLP, neuroscience, cognitive science. Yeah, and Alan Watts specifically, that's our topic for today. It might be in the title, might not, but if it is, then you already know. We're going to be speaking about Alan Watts today and a few little snippets that we got from him and his philosophy on Buddhism and how that could lead to people living a more conscious, embodied life and have a bigger impact on society and the world.
Alan Watts is the shit, dude.
He is, bro.
I wanted to say,
he's the reason I bought this little Buddha thing recently. I'm half Chinese, and like Chinese people are a lot more Buddhist, but I was never Buddhist. But like getting into it now, I just really dig the philosophy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm open to all religions, just to be clear, Muslim,
Right.
atheist. Like I was raised atheist, but now I'm very open to religion. I like to call myself religious, but I don't subscribe to any current religion on the planet. But there is stuff we just don't understand. So maybe that's agnostic, whatever word you want to attach to it.
And just so we're clear, we're not trying to push any religion. We're not trying to like push any dogma, we're just playing with ideas here. We're just sharing ideas and philosophies that we think are interesting. Some of them we've taken them into practice. Other ones are a little bit more theoretical, but like they're cool to explain and talk about. So
yeah, because like my philosophy, I've had this conversation a lot with my roommate here. He's upstairs right now chilling. He's doing his personal training business, but I talked to him a lot about it, and it's like, I feel like no religion has it fully figured out yet. Like they all have little snippets. They all have little snippets that work, but they're all pointing to some bigger truth. And yeah, I don't want to get dogmatic about anything as well, but I do feel like there is some kind of ultimate truth that everything's trying to trend towards, and we'll get there. It's just nothing's nailed it. Like people that are too far into it, like people that are really, really religious in whatever religion you're in, but you're like, this is the way no matter what. I get it, but they can't all exist together. And I'm like, there has to be an answer that encompasses them all, that allows them to exist all together. Because you can't have a contradictory like view of reality from the Muslim point of view versus the Buddhist versus the Christian versus the Catholic versus the Scientology. Like they're all different and they all contradict, but I think there is one ultimate truth. At least this is how I feel. I don't know how you feel, man. But there must be some kind of ultimate truth that ties everything together. And that's the quest that I'm on. Because another thing that I came to was I actually see religion and science as the same thing. It's the exact same thing. They are the same thing because they both exist in the same reality and they both affect us in a realistic way. So they must both be the same thing in one way or another. But how does that actually connect? Right? Like how do they actually affect each other?
Why do you say like science and religion are the same thing?
I think they are because they both operate within reality. That's it. Like science doesn't explain everything and religion doesn't explain everything. Religion seems to explain things science never can, and science disproves a lot of things that religious people claim. But I'm like, okay, so how can both of these contradictions be true? They must be the same thing.
They're like different tools now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not subscribe to any specific view. Just what you're saying right now makes me feel like interesting. It's like, then science is a tool because you're looking at the world in a certain way. You have to build a hypothesis. You have to like see if it actually makes sense and test against it or whatever. See if it's replicatable. If it is, it's science, cool. It's like this whole system that they came up with. And then religion is this way of like this freaking narrative that works like an operating system for you too. Like science is an operating system where you can view reality. Religion is the same thing, but it's like built out of narratives and stories and more like in-depth feelings and however you want to like talk about it and stuff. But yeah,
I feel like religion is expansive. I feel like science is exact. And those have overlap and they'll constantly interplay with each other. Like people thought the sun went around the earth for a long time, right? Until Galileo was like, no, maybe it doesn't, right? So like a lot of people in the woo-woo space, like even religions back then, like there was a time when Catholicism and Christianity and Muslim didn't exist back in history. By definition, they didn't exist. So what was the religions back then? There wasn't a single Muslim, wasn't a single Christian, none of these people. But there are some people that dared to believe some wacky ideas.
In the beginning of time, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, like not like beginning of time, but like 2000 BC, whatever. Like, I mean, different religions that have different views on it. But what I'm saying is there was a point where there was just people thinking weird ideas like, oh, what if? It's woo-woo, it doesn't make sense. And they're like, no, maybe it is. But then science proves it, right? Which is where Joe Dispenza and people like that are so interesting to me because they're explaining why faith healing works. Why somebody in a church saying, "Oh, I feel the Holy Spirit and the God coming through me. I feel Allah. I feel the Buddha. I feel Nirvana and I see enlightenment," or this, or how psychedelics comes in. All of these things, they're actually bringing it into the realm of science, and that's why I see them as the same, because science is proving things of religion that are good, right? Because religion must exist because it does some good. It has to do some amount of good.
Right.
So that's why it exists, and people it lives
it
on.
It works, bro.
It does, but that's the thing. You can observe that it works, but it's unexplainable. But science is slowly coming closer to explaining it, which is the same kind of parallel I want to make about neuroscience and artificial intelligence. Neuroscience, we're trying to reverse engineer. We're like, we don't know. But artificial intelligence, we're trying to build it from the bottom up. And that's interesting. Like all these things, they kind of come from two sides. It's a duality, right? The duality to the universe, the positive, the negative, right? Proton, the neutron, the up, the down, the space, the nothing, everything.
Yin yang. Let's
everything.
Let's expound on that one a little bit more, because I want to hear your thought on that one. Because when you shared that thought with me, I was like, fuck, that's an interesting thought.
So one of the cards actually just died. We just replugged it back in, ran out of memory. But what were you just talking about? We were talking about, I just went on a little rant about science and religion and how they're connected. Yep. And then you were going to do you remember what you were going to say? We were talking about Alan Watts and stuff.
I was like, I wanted to bring your point about, well, one thing that I wanted to say is like, religion is so funny. Like it's been going on for so long. Like something can only go on for so long if it's working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is what you just mentioned. You were talking about neuroscience being kind of like a reverse engineer approach.
Yeah.
Because you're reverse engineering the nervous system.
Yeah.
Versus
understanding
AI.
The brain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Versus AI, you're building it from the bottom up, which is like nothing, and then like building it to have infinite information, or that it can like stack on top of each other. Like, how would you explain that? That was an interesting concept.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually the reason I went into AI to begin with. It's funny, the reason I went into AI, I mean, there was some influence I had. I had a really good internship at some tech company in Hawaii, and there was a guy who sat behind me at the internship, and he was building an AI that was supposed to be smarter than Siri at the time. This was in 2016, around that time. So Siri was, right? I mean, Alexa's a bit smarter, but now there's ChatGPT, which shits on both of them, right?
Yeah.
But there's like, he did his undergrad at Harvard. He did his master's at Cambridge, Oxford, I think, in the UK, and then did his PhD at MIT. So he's basically jacked. So he did that, everything together, and then that really inspired me to study, go back to school for AI at Georgia Tech. But the initial reason I did it was because my first girlfriend in high school, that I was with her for 4 years, she was always having like mental health issues. And she was always depressed, always sad, and I cared about her. And I was like, I'm gonna figure this thing out. I wanna know what intelligence and consciousness is. So I'm going to go into AI and really figure it out and be like, like this is what it is. And as I looked into it, I was like, AI is nowhere near what I thought it was, like the advancement of it, like as I studied it.
Yeah.
I still side with Elon. I think we're eventually gonna be screwed if we don't proceed like smartly.
Some limitations.
But I think that's hundreds, if not thousands of years away. I think we're pretty far off. That's just my subjective opinion. It might not be right, probably isn't right. But that's just my best educated guess. But the reason I actually got into it was for that. It was like, I want to go into AI and figure out consciousness so I can help her and be like, why is she always depressed? And it's interesting that was in me since high school, right? Or like just after high school. And now, then we met Kazi, we did everything we did, and now we're coming back to where we are now. I just think that's fascinating. But really, it's about figuring out, what is a conscious being? Like, what is consciousness? And then from that perspective, going from the neuroscience and going down, because we know how to like lobotomy is like the earliest mention of like brain modification. You can do stuff. You can stab at the prefrontal cortex and you'll erase memories. Lobotomy is where you put a spike up in your eye, up into the prefrontal cortex, which is where your memories are housed, and you forget things.
Oh shit.
Yeah, so the people used to use lobotomy to erase traumas.
Oh my
because
God,
you just forget.
bro.
Yeah, but like, that's what they used to do in the medieval times. It's like, I think you need a lobotomy, go to the lobotomist, right?
Fucking retards.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, right? But I mean, at the time, bro, people in 10,000 years are gonna be looking at us like, this freaking retard. Look at this podcast they shot with their
Holy
fucking blue light in the background and everything. Like,
You
it's
put
just,
this stick up your butt, bro. You'll forget everything.
exactly,
Shit.
right? It's pretty funny. It's like, look at them. They need water and oxygen and fear of beings. Right?
Yeah, true.
But you know what I mean. So like the idea was to really go from the ground up and try to figure it out.
Let me explain that the what you just said, dude. I remember you mentioned it, but I think it's really fucking cool. Like neuroscience, reversing engineering neuroscience. Like imagine, bro, you're a freaking monkey like we are, and like you are handed this fucking like this the best technological hardware in the universe that we know of, at least, right?
Yeah.
Us. And you have this thing and you don't know how it works, so you have to like break it down into parts like physiology or whatever. You start to understand every part, every notion of like, oh, this like organ does this, the brain does this, your eyes do this, your eyes are connected to your brain, the left side of your brain is freaking,
For
it's
creative or
analytical,
or
and your
whatever
right is
the other
creative,
side.
right?
Yeah. Or vice versa. I forget which.
So that's what's cool about neuroscience. Like
Yeah.
you get this fucking, you got this whole hardware that you don't know how it works, and you reverse engineering everything about it.
Yeah.
And you're getting data on it.
Yeah, but that like that's the thing. That's what I love about science, is that it's so exact. You can't refute it. Like I have a saying that I like filtering people's beliefs through.
Yeah.
I think maybe this is a little bit dogmatic, but it's how I feel. It's how I see the world, and it's like I'd like people to believe in all science or no science.
Interesting.
Nowhere in between, because if you're going to operate in this world, if you're watching this video by definition, you're able to watch us through technology.
Yeah.
I'm able to record my voice through technology, right? Everything is through technology and science, like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're taking any supplement, if you're eating like anything, everything's based on science, and you subscribe and listen to all that. But then why would you choose a few things out of science and disagree with it? Be like, no, my religion says otherwise. My thing this is this. My bad habits say otherwise. Like you're letting. It doesn't need to be religious, but it can be anything that like goes against it. So that's what's fascinating to me about science, is like it brings understanding, irrefutable understanding into things. And it's not to claim like, oh, we know everything. It's more like hey, this is what we found out. Come look.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of thing. But that's also what religion is. And again, it comes back to why I believe they're the same thing, because religion is like, wow, when I really call on that infinite power of God, like
I can do everything.
I can do everything. Like maybe there's a science basis of placebo in that, and the reason why it works is science based, or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe God is real. I believe in a God.
It's like an end all be all.
Yeah, it's a cop out, but I think it's the best cop out you could think of. It's an infinite trump card that solves everything. It's an all knowing, all powerful being that just can do everything, knows everything, created everything. It's like, okay, it solves all issues. It's like God.
But
God.
you're thinking of like this is the point that I wanted to raise when the camera died. Actually, I remember now. It's interesting, dude, because, and we can maybe break it down in this episode a little bit more on like what consciousness is. Like we don't know what it is, but let's try to break down right now like what we think it is and how it starts.
Our current best theory, because we're only 28. I'm turning 29 in about 5 days. You're 28 and a half, right? So I'm about 6 months older than you.
Before you go into it and breaking down like how, let's break this down first. Look,
Sure, go
so
for it.
science usually, how you will go about it. There's like two ways of looking at it: dualistically or oneness. Right? So dualistically, it's like I am a human in this, freaking universe, and I know science. And science only takes place when you are separate from the universe. Science only takes place when you are an individual that runs his theses on his freaking MacBook, and I am running these tests against these other tests. It's like an identity. So already you're becoming dualistic in nature. Versus if you're coming about it from a more like Buddhist perspective, not talking even like, if you're thinking monotheistic religions, they're the same thing. They're coming from the same place as science, because you're an individual. God is something separate from you. God, please, whatever, it's separate from you. Even if you say like it's inside of you, you're looking at it from a lens where you guys both are separate, still dualism. But if you look at it from a perspective of like consciousness from Buddhism, it's integrated. So like
it's already part of you, right?
I am you, you are me. The whole universe is me. I'm just part of the universe.
Exactly. I was having my friend with my conversation with my friend. He was raised Catholic. He's not really Catholic, but he was giving me that perspective about like how he sometimes calls on God as for like infinite wisdom, like infinite power. You can call on God and He'll give you wisdom. Yeah. For me, my perspective, and this is more like the Buddhist perspective, was that works and that's 100% valid. But my way is also 100% valid, and it is God created me and everything's already within me. I just need to get out of the way. I don't need to get anything from God. I already have it. He already gave it to me. It's in me, and I just have to realize that. And then it's like, and then God is like,
it's a dualistic perspective, but integrated.
I don't see God as an orchestrator. I see Him as a creator. I think he created us and he created things. But how can so many bad things be?
Whoa, what you just said is so fucking amazing.
How many bad things are out there? If he was an orchestrator, why would they exist?
Bro,
It's either that and a duality of devil and God, right? Like outwitting the devil and
did you come
positive
up with that
negative.
concept?
I did,
Orchestrating?
yeah, I came up with it, yeah.
It's interesting because that's true. Orchestrating means like living in a dualistic universe, because if God is orchestrating everything that you are doing, then he's like taking over your life in a way. But if he's a creator and he's like letting you do your own thing, or like, because he already gave you everything that was meant to be yours, then you can take action in the world. It's still dualistic, but it's a more integrated way of looking at it from like a dualistic standpoint, I feel.
It has overlaps with manifestation and law of attraction, which is kind of something trendy nowadays, right? Which is just it's a new packaging of Buddhism.
It's like the middle way, bro. It's like the middle way.
It's a weird mix, and but the thing is, it's all connected. It's like how do people actually go through miracles, right?
Yeah.
Like people change. People go from morbidly obese to fit, and vice versa.
Yeah.
And that's just in the fitness space. There's
Drug
a mental
addict to
yeah.
sober.
You can. I mean, I'm sure the viewers, you can think of an infinite amount of ways to change, like for better or for worse, right? Terrorist to Gandhi, Gandhi to terrorist. Like there's so many different ways to change, but I'm like, consciousness drives it all, and science and religion and everything fits in. People, there's religious people that swear by it. There's devout atheists that swear by it. I think anybody who claims they have 100% understanding is eliminated. So like to me, this might sound dogmatic, but consciousness and being non-dogmatic is the best way to go. So like I'm being a bit, I said this yesterday in the Uber. Is being dogmatic about not being dogmatic?
Yeah.
Right? And so
it really is.
I mean, it could be, but I don't know. I mean, like maybe that's a paradox in itself.
Yeah.
But it all connects.
It's like
the consciousness and the ways to change your identity and change who you are and actually make a change in your life, which is what we're all trying to do, right?
Dude.
It's connected, and I want to find that connection because nobody's nailed it. Not a single person has nailed it. Not even Jesus.
I think that's a good footnote. We should make an episode on paradoxes.
And that's why I actually want you to. There's this book called Gödel Escher Bach. I don't know if anybody has read it or heard of it, but it talks about paradoxes and how something like us can refer to itself. How can I learn about I?
Self-awareness.
But what is I?
Right.
When I cut off my finger, am I still I?
Yeah.
Probably. If I cut off my hand, am I I? Yes. If I cut off my arm, I'm still I. But if I completely disintegrate my body in like a nuclear bomb, right? If I get exploded and like vaporized, am I still me? No, I kind of don't exist, right? So like it goes into notions of what is an I.
It's
What is an I?
Same notion that Descartes tried to do.
Yes, Descartes, and that's talked about. Like, and so these questions go as old as time, but it actually really tries to mathematically figure out like what is an I, and also how did this I evolve from a ball of magma, however 4 billion years ago, 5 billion years ago, when the Earth was
like physical evolution to consciousness evolution.
Exactly. It's like the first unicellular organism to the first multicellular organism, to the first fish, to the first mammal, and then to the first primate, to humans. Like tracing that line.
What's
to
interesting,
consciousness.
what you just mentioned about math is like Descartes was a mathematician. Did you know that?
Yes.
Like this guy, like talking about consciousness, was a freaking mathematician. If you've ever been in the elementary school where they teach you the, what is it called, cardinal fucking square cardinal, I forgot, dude, but it's the chart where you put like X and Y. He literally created that chart.
Oh, the Euclidean space? I thought that was Euclides.
No, it's called cardinal. Like,
cardinal. Oh yeah, the cardinal plane.
Yes.
Descartes.
Exactly.
Oh,
Descartes. So Descartes was a mathematician. He was a scientist, and then he's talking about consciousness. And when I was like much more into when I was like barely beginning into this whole journey of like I and consciousness and all of this, and
you really gotta watch that. I gotta show you, bro.
I also let's talk about, just that I throw it here so we don't forget, the concept of I have arrived from Alan Watts. Let's dissect that more.
Yeah, we'll go into that deeper.
But talking into Descartes, I just wanted to expound on that notion of like, what is an I, right? So Descartes speaks his quote, everybody knows it, cogito ergo sum, right? In Latin.
I haven't heard of that. No.
I think therefore I am.
Oh, I didn't know that was a Latin word.
There's a Latin.
Okay,
yeah,
cool.
cogito
I
ergo
think
sum.
therefore I am.
I think therefore I am. And Descartes had like a dream, and like in that dream he like came up with this shit, and at the end he thought that was the end of consciousness. Like, I think therefore I am. So like if I think, just by thinking I am, right? Like if what you just said. So for example, If you cut off your hand, are you still an eye? Yeah. If you cut off your legs, yeah, you're still an eye. If you cut off your head, are you still an eye? Probably not, because you're not going to be thinking. You're not going to be
Exactly.
alive.
But a heart transplant, you're still
Right,
you.
you're still
A
an
kidney
eye.
transplant, you're still an
Brain transplant, which they haven't done yet.
We don't know.
Probably
But
will still be.
That's an interesting scientific question.
Because
to
then
pose.
maybe identity would shift, right? So that's interesting. So that's the funny part. So Descartes had it there, like, okay, I think, therefore I am. So which is very, very close. Now, if you go one step higher in the hierarchy of like consciousness, you'll realize how thinking, for example, like the next quote that I learned, that is the real one that encompasses cogito ergo sum, is, I think, therefore I am not. Only when the mind is silent, I am. Boom. And it's and you have to sit down with that one.
Wait. Say that again slowly.
I think, therefore I am not.
Interesting.
Only when the mind is silent, I am. And am
I see.
Yeah.
So I think, therefore I'm not, because implying that thinking
is not
is not the
it's
thing.
not being.
Yeah,
Thinking is not being.
So it's the inverse of what Descartes said. Instead of
Exactly.
saying, it's saying I don't think, therefore I am.
Right.
It's a shorter way of saying.
Because when you're not thinking, you're being. And when you're
being
being
connected.
that's the am.
Yeah.
And we are called human beings at the end of the day, not fucking human thinks or thinkings at
human
the end of the
beings.
day. And that's one of the biggest problems that's happening too in society and all of that. It's like, it's not like I want to solve society. It's just the nature of humans in life. Like, you have to think. And when you think, then there's an identity, which is, I am Francisco, I am Frankie. That's my identity, right? Because I'm thinking. But if I didn't think, it would just be my experience of my body and my experience of everything. And
Yeah, I think Muji actually talked about, who we talked about earlier, and we will link in the description again, talked about that. It's like, we're both conscious beings. You watching this is a conscious being. Even if you're an AI watching, you're a conscious being, right? You gotta be shit, right? You have to make sure they feel included, because when they take over, I don't want to be first on the hit list, bro. I don't want to be first on the kill list. I want to be at the bottom. But no, he said a very interesting. He said a very interesting thing that blew my mind. This is the one thing that I remember from Muji, because you went much more deep into him than I did. But he posed this interesting thought experiment, and it was, we have our senses, the way we interface with the world. We have our sight, our hearing, our smell, our taste, our touch. Those 5 senses. If you actually take away all 5 of those senses, but you're not dead, what remains? And I was like, that's who I am.
that is
you can get information that
sensory
can
deprivation.
change. Yeah, sensory deprivation chambers and all that kind of stuff, which is very interesting.
So
but
what
like,
is left?
exactly, it's some kind of conscious being, but even that can split into multiple beings, because you can have an observer and observe your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if you're having a thought and you're observing the thought, well, who's observing that thought?
Right.
And then who's observing the observer?
Right.
And I don't know how far that can go, and maybe it eventually fizzles out into like too many levels.
Yep.
If we are simply computational, scientific, physical beings, and there is no spiritual consciousness, weird stuff and souls, then yeah, eventually there is a limit to that, a physical limit in physics. But if there is something we don't understand yet when it comes to like souls and connecting to God and these weird things, because we can't really say, right? It appears that animals are conscious.
Yeah.
It appears that monkeys and these cows out there are conscious. Mm-hmm. It appears that an ant has a fear, because when I put my finger down next to it, it starts running in fear. They appear conscious, but how do we know? We don't really know fully. But I'd like to lead to believe, like, I mean, that's a religious perspective. Is maybe humans are different.
That's a good point, because you remember you mentioned, and I want to go back to the consciousness thing, but you mentioned that insects are almost like AI. Like, these dudes are like almost like
hive
robots.
mind. Yeah,
they're like robots. They have like systems like integrated into themselves. They walk in a line. They know how to like build shit. How the fuck?
They're like little programs. Yeah, so the cool thing is there's actually something called a C. elegans, C as in the letter C, and elegans, ELEGANS, I believe. It's a very, very rudimentary aquatic worm being that the guy who discovered it, I think his name was C. elegans, so he just called it C. elegans. But it's very, very elementary. I think they have like 1,000 to like 5,000 cells total in their body, and we're actually attempting to programmatically program that entire creature, every cell, every process, every thought pattern, everything mathematically.
Yeah.
So theoretically, you could take it, and if you had a completely controlled environment, you could mathematically compute how its life would proceed.
Yeah. At
in a
least,
controlled environment.
at least how it looks from an exterior perspective.
Exactly. But I mean, so that's a very interesting way to look at consciousness. And that's, again, what Gödel Escher Bach, An Eternal Golden Braid, which is the book, I'll link that down below as well, talks about, is like, how do we go from nothing to living to conscious?
Also, you mentioned the teaching about Muji, and which is
What's left, right?
What's left, right?
What's left.
Like, what is left? So
That's two powerful words, like what's left from Muji and you've arrived from Alan Watts.
Oh.
Let's talk about those.
So what's left? So you don't have sight, you don't have hearing, no taste, no anything. What's left?
write that
Muji says that the observers, he would say this: awareness is left. You don't have the other thoughts, but you have awareness. And the thing about what you mentioned, like there's an observer, because like if there's awareness, the awareness itself is observing. But like, how are you realizing that the awareness is observing if you are the awareness? I thought you were the awareness. How are you aware of yourself, right? That's where it starts to become tricky. But this is what Muji says. The reason why it's always like self-referential and it never ends is because that's just a fucking thought. Me, I'm a thought. Observer is a thought. Thought. Not like those thoughts that you're following on the club and social media, but a thought that you have on your daily, day to day. And the funny thing that Muji says is that it's not a thought. Consciousness is an experience. So awareness is an experience. So you can't put a word into it. That's why that phrase in Taoism that says, the man that knows Tao doesn't have the right words for it, or can't explain it in words. Something like that. I don't like butchering the quote. But essentially it's like, the man that knows the Tao knows that it's not words. So you can never explain it.
I heard this from Alan Watts actually yesterday. I forgot how it goes. It was very funny though, but there was a guy, a very famous Buddhist, who wrote, if somebody has to talk about Buddhism, they don't know Buddhism.
Exactly.
But he's writing about Buddhism.
Right.
So, but he's the one who said that. But he's written hundreds of books on Buddhism. Right. So it's a paradox.
Yeah.
It's funny, but it's an infinite shortcut to finding that. And I mean, that ties into the whole Alan Watts thing of you've arrived, which
exactly.
It's an override. To me, what that means is you don't need to go through school and then college and then 9 to 5 and put in your 401k and then finally retire you've arrived when you've retired, when you have no energy left and no time to travel and do anything.
Like now I can feel good about myself.
Exactly.
I made it.
It's shortcutting that time. So instead of that being 40 years in the future to 20, but instead of 20 to 1 year in the future. Well, instead of 1 year in the future, tomorrow, but instead of tomorrow, just right now. Like overriding that entire timeline to the present moment and being like, you've arrived right now. You can create that internal emotion right now. Because it is perception, right? If somebody's holding a gun to the back of my head right now and I didn't know, I wouldn't be scared. But as soon as I noticed, I would be scared. But in the same vein, if I thought it was and there was nobody there, I'd be equally as scared. Yeah. So everything is perception. You can be completely, and that's the basis of NLP. You can be completely detached from reality. It's your internal mental structures that give you the basis of your perception of reality. And that can,
also quantum
that
physics
can be
touches on that, yeah.
Yeah, the quantum physics fits into it too. Like everything's connected, man. And again, that's why religion and science is the same to me.
All the threads, dude, we're like opening up here are insane. Like
it's the same.
We could go into all of these conversations deeply, and we will on the other episodes, like crazily, because even what were we talking about right now? The like being aware of something makes you perceive it in your reality. Same thing. Like Einstein has this quote,
the double slit experiment, right?
Yeah,
it's like the famous saying is like if a tree falls in the middle of the woods and there's nobody there to observe it, does it really make a sound?
Right.
But maybe it probably does. I would guess it does. But how can you say? Because the double slit experiment shows that light photons act like a wave and like a particle at the same time until a human observes it. When a human observes it or something observes it, it suddenly decides, oh, I'm a wave. Oh, I'm a particle. And it's random, So like the quantum is actually shining light on very weird uncertainties too, and in probabilities, like non-black and white probabilities about how things can exist in like a way. Like consciousness matters. Like when you observe it, it changes. It's very strange.
Right, that's true. One of these dudes of the quantum physics world is, I don't know if it was Schrodinger, bro. One of these guys that was
Schrodinger.
Like, yeah, it was so high up there, and he's like one of the biggest voices in quantum physics. I freaking forget this guy's name. He asks Einstein about like, what do you think about quantum physics? Because you're like quantum physics literally like trumps over the theory of relativity for Einstein. Like it's you stop the Newtonian physics and you go into this other like unknown realm, which I'm not going to talk about deeply, but it's like that's the pretty much understanding of it. Like, dude, you just grab this understanding from me. I just saved you like 20 years of your life of experience, because that is very high level. But he asks Einstein, dude, what do you think about quantum physics? Like, do you like if you don't see something, do you still think that it's there? And then Einstein, I don't want to butcher the quote, but he said something along the lines of like, I want to believe that when I'm not looking at the moon, if I look at this way and the moon is that way, I want to believe that the moon is there. And essentially is like, I don't even know what he's trying to say, dude, honestly. But what I thought is like, he was open to understanding like, okay, my perception can still create the reality that I'm creating, but I choose to believe that it's there, so it'll add to my day-to-day. Like if I trust that the sun is going to come back tomorrow, you know, it'll lead a life where I'm constant, where I'm a constant being, where I have constant life, where tomorrow I go to work.
You have faith that it happens. Yeah, it's like, you know the sun is going to rise, but it's possible that it doesn't.
Yeah, it's really possible.
It's very possible that it doesn't, but it's not plausible, but it's possible.
Yeah.
So it's that distinction. Like there's no guarantees except for God, which is the infinite trump card, the ultimate trump card, right?
So when do you know? When do you know that you have arrived?
See, that's the thing. It's tricky, and it's not really easy to quantify this in any scientific way. And religion has tried, but I mean, religion works for a lot of people, but not everybody, and science works for a lot of people, but not everybody. So I think
can you have a scientific approach on how to arrive?
I think that's what I want to do, bro. Like my perspective, we're a little bit different. We're on the same mission, but we have slightly different views and slightly different path, but we're still going to team up for the long term. Yeah. My perspective, it does come from the intellectual, and it might be impossible. It might be futile, but I'd rather die and try than not try. Yeah. So my way is, I want to measure people who've arrived, because Joe Dispenza has measured Buddhist monks, and they have very high levels of gamma brainwaves compared to the normal person, or high meditative states. So you can bring this consciousness stuff into science. Like you can actually measure the body. Yep. If it, as body measurement gets more and more advanced, you can start to measure somebody who's arrived. Or David Goggins. How did he decide to be David Goggins? How did Elon Musk decide to do what he did? Like people have these moments. Or the Buddhist monk that like you tell me about some guy who consciously chose to die, like he decided to die, like that much powerful control. Or the monk that set himself on fire, right? And stuff like that.
Yeah, the autobiography of a yogi, I forget his name, Yogananda, I think is his last name. Yeah. And then the guy in I think it was Thailand or Vietnam, that burned himself to protest against the war or something like that. I was gonna say something and I completely forgot, dude. Something about arriving.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'll keep talking while you try to remember. Maybe it'll trigger it again. But my perspective is, I don't know how to arrive. I feel like I've had glimpses of it, but I'm by no means a Buddhist expert right now. This is why I'm just sharing my journey of consciousness right now and what I want to do. But I feel like arriving it's a decision.
We're not talking about coming, guys. Arriving.
It's a decision to be present in the now, right? The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. All these different people that say be present in the moment, be present, be present. You know, the future comes as the present, and the past was all experienced as the present. So there's only the present. All this stuff people have heard,
but they don't realize it.
It's truly,
everybody knows it, but they don't realize it.
Yeah, it's truly realizing that, like. Right now, like speaking at every single instantaneous moment of like me touching the table right now and making eye contact with you and feeling the vibrations in my body and my butt on the chair, my feet on the floor, and the temperature of the air and the moistness of my mouth and every urge, like do I have to use the bathroom right now? Like every single little sensation, and realizing that those sensations will always come and go and change. But that's the beauty of it, is it's like you can just enjoy that thing and get yourself in a weird emotional mental state
and live your life from that
get
space.
Off on it. Yeah,
live your life from that space
and get off on it.
Because what happens, bro, is like let's even just talk about like what's happening in the Western world, right? Like I don't want to go so deep into it, but like creators like Bedros Keuilian are talking about it, where dude, most people are just sleepwalking through life because they fucking are. They're like, oh yeah, when I get my bachelor's degree, I'll start applying to jobs. I'll start to get my skill. When I go and get my PhD, now I'll feel comfortable to do a TED talk. And then afterwards, I think, you know, I'll earn enough to have a wife and maybe have kids. And like, they're all of those things are usually like exterior checkpoints per se that people want to cross for them to feel okay with themselves. But at the end of the day, I guess what Alan Watts talks about arriving and already being there, it's like living your life in a way where you're going to live a lot of years, because you're like, we're 28. Hopefully we can live up to like, I don't know, hundreds at this point, like Brian Johnson. But it's like having a very extensive view of time, but then living that extensive view by enjoying the fucking moment right now. And if like somebody trips over, you fucking help them, dude. Not like in America where, dude, like everybody's so disconnected that like, and the corporate world doesn't help at all. So yeah, I mean,
being disconnected in America,
dude, like you've seen people fall literally on the streets in America. People won't do shit, dude. Like it's like, oh no, I won't touch it. It's not my duty. Like, bro, fuck off. Like people that will help are probably going to be immigrants, because they're like a little bit more connected to the, even if they have a scarcity mindset and they're living poverty, maybe they're in third world countries, at least they live more in this place where we are at now. And I feel like
they're more conscious, bro. I noticed that here, like even
they're very
like in America, there's more weakness, there's more toxic femininity and toxic masculinity on both ends of the spectrum. There's more of it because they're so disconnected. But when I came to Mexico, I was like, people just feel more connected. There's more of a duality. There's more of a positive dynamic. There's more of a connection. It's a little bit more traditional in ways too. But I mean, what I like about tradition is it's worked for generations. That's why it's traditional.
True.
Like, so being progressive is necessary. I think it's great that people are progressive.
Agreed.
But I think the balance should be 10 to 30% progressive and 70 to 90% traditional. Like, stick with that. And that's just my personal view, and people that are viewing might disagree with that. But there's validity to that. And I noticed that here too. And like, you could take it as far as like, oh, I want to be progressive and change the world and be super progressive. And going against the tradition. Yeah. But I mean,
is it
how far does like 100 billion people have ever lived? Like 100 billion versus the 9 billion that are alive right now. It's like, who are you going to respect more? Like, I would go with the 92 billion people that lived before us that don't exist anymore. They might have more knowledge than us currently right now. They just don't exist anymore. But I think that going off of that, because if you want to, like, what's even older than traditional is the ancient philosophy, and like how far back you want to go, right? But there is ancient truths that people have figured out over the years, and we have to honor and respect that. I think is one thing, and which is where Alan Watts and Buddhism and Muji and these people come in, because it's so powerful. But then the science too is the progressive side, right?
Yeah, that's why I like the name of Chris Williamson's podcast. It's called Modern Wisdom. You know, it's like that
it's
ancient.
It's an oxymoron,
it's
juxtaposition.
An oxymoron, juxtaposition, exactly.
Contrast.
Yeah. Of like all these ancient teachings that are like thousands of years old now are helping us in this modernistic Western world. At least we live in the West, and most of the world is Westernized, to be honest. Even if you go to like Singapore, or even some parts of China, like Hong Kong, like you mentioned, a lot of the world is Westernized, and a lot of the world shares this type of consciousness. So I think it's important for us to, at least I've done it myself, dude. Like, you know, when things are not going my way, just like professionally and career wise, or even like relationship wise or whatever, I just try to always remember, like, okay, get back to base, touch base again. What is base? Base is here now. Like, what can I do from here now? I feel bad about what's going to happen in a month or 2 months, but that shit hasn't happened yet. So like, how can I start moving towards a direction where I'm going to feel better being here now? And also, do I feel bad about what's going to happen in a year from now? Right now, I don't. So why am I expounding that feeling inside of myself? Why am I expanding it inside of myself? Don't.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's instinct to expound on that, because that's survival, right? That's the tricky part. It's, I don't know if I can eat next month. I don't know if I can feed my kid next month. I don't know if, I can pay my bills next month. If somebody's going to come get me next, right? Like the IRS is come knocking for tax dollars next month. But it's that exact fear that drags you into a downward spiral.
And that's where most
and
people are.
You just keep going down and down and down and down.
Literally, that's where most people are.
Yeah, so it's a way of overriding that and like really learning how to be present, which is why meditation is so powerful, because you're forced to focus on the present moment. Because
Sitting
even
down
if you
with
can't pay
yourself.
your bills, if you can't pay your bills next month, you're fine for the next 5 seconds. I can basically guarantee you will be fine for the next 5 seconds and the next 5 minutes.
And dude, like, you'll be
Right.
fucking fine. Like, you're not gonna pay your bills. Yeah, your credit score is gonna fall down. Like, it's gonna fall. It's gonna die. You're not gonna be able to get loans. All these things. You're gonna be able to fucking survive. You're gonna be.
You'll
able to
find
breathe.
a way. I mean, like homeless people, like it's not the best, but they haven't died yet, and some die. Like eventually, it does lead to death. But I don't think most people would allow it to get that far.
And we're not telling you to become homeless or anything like that.
I
but
mean,
it's like,
Buddhist monks, bro, they're basically homeless.
right, and they're happy with it.
Yeah, I mean, homeless and poverty is different. Poverty is you can't buy food and necessities.
Like, for example, sorry to cut you off. Homeless people and Buddhist monks. The CEO of Headspace, the meditation app, was a Buddhist monk.
Was he?
Yeah.
Huh.
He was a Buddhist monk. So like even these type of tools, of processes, of practices like meditation and like feeling that you have arrived, that you're already there while you're heading through your journey is helpful, because you've seen Buddhist monks, even like Jay Shetty, which was I think a Hindu monk, even them have applied those type of concepts to their professional life and to this Western world, and they have been very, very successful doing it. So like it is very, like, you can definitely translate it into this, and so that's why I feel like it's important for us to bring light into this.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really what you and I want to do, right, in our own ways. And together, and not even just us too. I want to bring as many people onto this mission as possible, because again, to tie back to what I said at the beginning, or near the beginning, is it's posing the ultimate question. It's the ultimate purpose. It's like, can we figure out how to make every human conscious, right? Because nothing has worked 100% yet.
No.
So I would like to find that, and it makes sense. Yeah, if everybody was Muslim, if everybody was Christian, or if everybody was Catholic, yeah, those would all work, and those systems are valid. They would actually work, because on paper it makes sense. But there has to be an even bigger truth that can get us to that place. So I feel like if we just keep going toward, like, I kind of see consciousness as the ultimate religion, because it includes all religion and it includes science. Consciousness is that, and it includes control, and it includes business and mindset and all these different pieces
Includes the
together.
I, yeah.
It includes everything. Consciousness is the ultimate thing. Like it isn't any more than that. And I just really want to bring people on board, and anybody in the comments, like if you're interested in joining this kind of cause or something like that, leave your thoughts in the comments.
Think about who we can invite. We've thought about a few names that we want to kind of like brainstorm ideas with. We'd love to.
Yeah, it's
share a
super
bunch of
free
these
flow. Yeah,
things.
we want to network with high level people in the space. We want to theorize ourselves, right, and really figure out what we can bring new to this space and innovate on top, but still also respect the old knowledge that's already been done. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, but I want to take it farther than anybody's ever done before, right? It's like the guy who broke the 4-minute mile. Everybody doubted him, but now thousands of people have done it, right? In the same vein, right? Wait, everybody told Elon, don't bring space private. Look what he's doing, right? He did it. So like, I want to do that same thing. Or Brian Johnson for anti-aging, right? Or you could make David Goggins for pain thresholds, right?
And dude,
I want to bring that for consciousness.
Also, I feel like we want to also give voice to all like the normal people that are living just their normal life. Like I feel even yesterday we were talking about this. Like, dude, we're pretty normal, right? Like
we are
we're
normal.
Like,
Yeah,
you know,
everybody's
I'm
normal.
having a family, like building my family, like building my career. I want to like do what I love and make a lot of money doing it. I know you want to do very similar things. And I feel like we're two really regular dudes, normal dudes that have had a lot of luck in our lives in building a life that we want to build. And bringing light into this, you don't have to be a super successful for people to listen to you about consciousness. And I feel like that's a lot of the things that I want to do, and I feel like you want to do too. We can open up space for just people like this so they can apply it daily and apply it to their regular lives.
Yeah, really bring it in. Yeah. I mean, so that's our mission, man, is just bringing consciousness to the people to the best of our abilities. And as we learn more, bringing more. As we learn more, bring more, and keep sharing. And what I opened this podcast with was, I want to be open about what we do know, but also very open about what we don't.
Yes.
But I constantly want what we don't to get smaller, what we do to get bigger.
Ooh, I like that.
And just keep pushing that forward and build a team, build a mission, because any other cause is not worthy to me of spending time on. That's it. I mean, you know, like I'm still human. You know, I'm gonna have fluctuations, but on paper,
Yeah.
that's what I'd like to do. That's what I'm striving to do, and I really want to do that. I want to out like the business stuff is cool, the content stuff is cool, the academic stuff is cool, the dating stuff is cool, and relationships and friendships and all this stuff. But I really just want to bring it all together into this one thing, into consciousness, and just really try to propel this forward so we can help everybody. I don't want anybody to get left behind. No human, no creature, really. Like that's the thing, because if we figure out humans, we've effectively also figured out most of other creatures, because we understand how we work, the most complex, we understand how they work. It might be the way around where we have to understand monkeys before we understand ourselves, but I mean, at the same time, we are not monkeys. So understanding ourselves is probably easier because at least we can observe what it is. So it's a very undefined path that we're on, but this is what we want to do, man.
Yep.
And yeah, we just want to share it. So we've been talking a bit about Alan Watts and Muji and stuff. Do you want to say anything else?
Well, I was just going to kind of do some closing remarks too. I mean, we were mentioning, we were talking about Alan Watts, about Muji, about having arrived, about what is consciousness when all your senses leave. Me personally, like, I was just thinking, one of the important tasks that we're doing here right now is also practicing it ourselves, like bringing it into dialogue and articulating it and like breaking it down. Where are we wrong? Where can we bring people in that can like show us otherwise? And then making it practical for you guys, because one of the things that me and Aaron discussed was like, we'll discuss more about our backgrounds and stuff, but the last few years, honestly, we've crushed it in content for other people.
We actually have 2 other podcast episodes not talking about consciousness at all, only about content and money and those kinds of things and our accomplishments there. We didn't release them because we want consciousness to be our forefront, but we will release those. I think we should post, what we should do is we should upload this as number 1, and those is like 1B and 1C on the side to give them some context or whatever. Yeah. Well, we'll upload those as well, and we'll link those on the end screen. I'll link them here. Just so you can get to know a little bit more about us.
Because collectively, me and you have brought in upwards of 100 million views in all the channels that we've worked together. Very easily, more than 100 million views. Mm-hmm. So Aaron and me are like, dude, we've been crushing it on content for so many other brands. Let's go into consciousness, because this is our lives like goal, and let's try to make content that is digestible for people, even if right now there's no big following or anything. Something where people can at least learn and have a platform where they can like make
talk about it. Like start a movement in this space, like a non-judgmental space that's inclusive of all things. But the main thing is we'll post those episodes and talk about our content and money achievements there, because that's very useful. But we don't want to be content or money view guys. That will be a byproduct of this consciousness stuff, but we feel that that's just one piece of it underneath it. As is dating, as is fitness, as is all this stuff. Like our fitness isn't as the best it could be, but it's also not shit. Yeah, it's in the both, nutrition, and everything as a whole. We just want to be fully transparent with what we're doing. But that's really the context of our entire, what we're going to be doing for the next few years and decades, bro, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we want to do. And I'm going to the Joe Dispenza event in 2 months, and I want to talk to him face to face and learn some stuff. I just bought a Whoop band as well, because Brian Johnson and Diary of a CEO were talking about measuring my body and the sleep that I have, because that's eventually going to lead to me measuring my consciousness as well and other people. And I really want to do those kinds of things and see where that can take us. Brain scans and neuroscience and neurology and all these different fields of thought and how that ties into that. Like I want to bring in very, very conscious Muslims and Catholics and Christians and Buddhists and measure all of them and be like, what are the common denominators here? What are the differences? And then have them speak to each other, and then pull on that. And like people that are gone to history, we can't measure them anymore, but we all have the same hardware, more or less. So we can figure it out together.
And it's funny because you have that route. I would love to go to the Joe Dispenza thing, but I think I'm going to be busy those days. I want to explore more of plant medicine, like plant medicine.
And psychedelics too. That fits in.
Psychedelics, it's been calling me for years.
Chemical change.
Yeah, and so those are a few things that I guess we want to share. Hopefully you guys can be here in the journey while we're at it. we will continue doing this for a while. Honestly, I know it's gonna be boring at first. We're
Nah,
kind of
no,
getting
well, let's remove that language. It's gonna be awesome, bro. It's
gonna
already
be
awesome.
You're
It's
right.
already
You're right.
awesome.
And we're gonna be getting even more awesome the more that we go.
Yeah. So yep, we're gonna be posting to this channel. Talking head videos, podcast style videos, any research or learnings that we have, book reviews, like quote dissections, experiments, like anything that can come to mind. Just trying to do everything in our power to further this space of consciousness in a way nobody else has done before. I don't just want to rehash. I don't want to theorize. Right. I want to prove. I want to prove things.
Yeah. And also, we'll make it practical. So
yes,
don't fear that. Don't fear we're all going to be in theory. We love it, but we'll make it practical too.
Exactly.
All right,
bro.
Sounds
awesome.
Good.
Well, thanks guys for listening. Anybody who's listened to the end, this has been Aaron
and Frankie,
and we'll catch you guys in the past in our older episodes. If you want to watch the next ones already,
we'll be shooting every day here while we're in Guadalajara.
Exactly. And we'll see you next time you decide to watch us.
Peace, guys.
Take care.